Welcome everybody to the webinar on preserving Drexel University's legacy, how to donate materials to the university archives. I'm Matthew Lyons, Drexel University Archivist, and I'll be the presenter. This session is part of Drexel University Libraries webinar series, Wednesdays at noon. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be publicly available sometime soon. I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes, and then there will be time for questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will answer them after the talk. Let me start by giving a quick overview of what I'm going to cover in the session. I'll say a little bit about what Drexel University Archives is and what we do. I'll talk about some of the reasons for donating materials to the university archives. I'll outline some of the kinds of materials that we collect and don't collect. I'll talk about the difference between transfers and donations, which are two different ways that we receive collection materials. I'll discuss some of the issues in preparing materials for the archives. And I'll walk you through some of the main steps in the process of donating or transferring materials to us. And then after a recap, as I said, there'll be time for questions. So what is Drexel University Archives? We're a program of Drexel University Libraries. We're located in Hagerty Library. Our main purpose is to collect and share materials that document the history of Drexel University. We also collect materials on the history of the Drexel family and related families. We collect from university offices and departments, campus organizations, as well as individual students, faculty, staff, and alumni. Our collections get used in a lot of different ways, such as class assignments, scholarly research projects, publications, inquiries about family history, and so on. In most cases, our collections are available for use by all members of the Drexel community and the general public. Why donate materials to the Drexel University Archives? What's the benefit of doing that? One benefit is that you can help us to collect and tell the stories of Drexel. University Archives is a small department. We don't have the capacity to go out and knock on doors and ask people for their stuff in most cases. We really rely on people contacting us to offer us the materials that they think may be of historical significance. Another benefit is that you can help us we can help you to preserve your documents and your memories of your experiences as part of the Drexel community, whatever your role is at Drexel, and whether you have materials that you've gathered as an individual or as part of an organization or a university department. And a third benefit is that by helping to build the archives, you're helping future researchers learn about the past. Remember that whatever activities we all are involved in today will become part of history, and people will be interested in learning about them. A general point I want to make is that if you have materials that you'd like to send to the archives, or if you're not sure whether your materials are appropriate for the archives, please talk to us. Archive staff can talk to you about what we're looking for and about what to expect from us. And we can go into specifics of your situation in a way that I really can't cover in a webinar. Also, if it looks like University Archives is not the right place for your materials, we can often recommend other archival institutions for you to contact that may be a better fit. What kinds of materials does the University Archives collect? In broad terms, we collect materials that document Drexel University's policies, organization, activities, intellectual output, culture, and impact on the world. We're interested in questions like, how do university departments and student organizations operate? What readings and assignments are faculty including in their courses? What are the experiences of campus life that students carry with them? What are the major events and discussions that shape this intellectual community? These are, again, just a few examples. As I said, we collect both from both institutional records of university departments and campus organizations, as well as materials held by individuals who are part of or at least connected with the Drexel community. We're interested in documenting the university and its community in a well-rounded and holistic way. So we're particularly interested in materials that help fill in gaps in our holdings. That includes records from sections of the university organization that are underrepresented in our holdings, such as the business school and the law school and the School of Education. It also includes materials that document the experiences of historically marginalized groups who have often been underrepresented or misrepresented in the historical record. Groups such as people of color, people with disabilities, working class people, and so on. Some examples of the kinds of things that we collect include both business and personal correspondence, such as letters, memos, postcards, emails. Materials documenting campus events, such as flyers, photographs, videos, and memorabilia. Meeting minutes and reports from bodies ranging from the University Board of Trustees to departmental committees to student groups. Administrative files, as well as subject files and research files. Course syllabi and lecture notes, and campus publications such as newsletters, magazines, and journals. For these and other materials, we collect stuff in both physical and digital formats. So, for example, we collect emails as well as physical letters, online publications, as well as printed newsletters and magazines. I also want to mention some things that we don't collect. There are a lot of works of art and artifacts that we're not set up to manage, such as most paintings and sculpture, articles of clothing, computer equipment, and toys. There are things that we don't collect for legal privacy reasons, such as medical records, and with certain exceptions, students' academic records or coursework. And there are some publications that we don't collect either because they're outside of our collecting scope, such as most old textbooks, or because we already have enough copies, such as most issues of the Lexard yearbook. So if you're not sure whether something is suitable for the archives or not, or even if you think you are sure, again, please check with us before you send stuff. I want to say something about how we make our collections available, because sometimes donors have expectations that may not be in sync with what we're able to do. When University Archives takes materials into our collections, we make a commitment to preserve them and to make them available for use, which usually means use by everyone. In most cases, the way people can access our materials is by coming into a reading room and looking at them. As staff time and resources permit, we create online guides to specific collections to make it easier for people to find these collections and to use them. We generally don't exhibit original items from our collections, although we might display them for a specific event. And we don't routinely digitize most collections. We don't have the capacity to do that. But we do digitize selected materials based on high demand or specific requests. At University Archives, our collecting falls into two categories: transfers and donations. We receive transfers of records from units that are considered part of the university's institutional structure, which includes both university departments and student organizations. And we receive collection donations from individuals acting as independent persons, whether they are Drexel employees, students, alums, or other people. When materials are transferred to the archives, they're being moved from one part of the university to another part, and we document that with an administrative form called a transfer form. When materials are donated to the archives, the university is acquiring ownership of materials that were owned by somebody else. That process involves drawing up a deed of gift, which is a contract between the donor and the university transferring legal ownership of the material. Let me say a few things about how to prepare materials to go to the archives. Archivists are interested in groups of related materials rather than just individual items, so it's often best to keep these groups of materials together and to keep things in their original order, if there is one. And generally, it's best to be conservative about weeding out extraneous materials. When in doubt, leave it in. If your materials include digital files, it's important that individual files and disks be labeled in ways that will be coherent and meaningful, and that any password protections be removed. If you're sending more than a couple of boxes, it's really helpful to number the boxes and provide at least a very brief description of what each box contains. It's also often helpful to provide contextual information, such as names, descriptions, backstories, so that archive staff can better understand the materials and how they relate to other things. And again, I would encourage you to discuss all of this with archive staff because the specifics will vary a lot. If you or your organization or department has materials that you think might be a good fit for Drexel University Archives, the best first step is to contact us, preferably by email at archives@drexel.edu. We will want a short description of the records, the kinds of materials, who they're from, the overall quantity, the time period represented, and if there are any issues with the material's physical condition. Depending on what they are, we may have more specific questions, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. In some cases, we may also ask to come and look at the materials ourselves so that we can assess whether all or some of them are suitable for our repository. Once everybody is agreed that a set of materials should come to the archives, the next step is usually that we ask you to bring or ship the materials to us, or if you're on campus, we may be able to pick them up from you. Usually we fill out the deed of gift or transfer form after we receive the materials so that we can include an accurate description. And then we send it to you for your signature. After that's signed and the whole process is completed and the materials have been added to the archival collections, collection donors receive a letter of thanks from Drexel University Libraries. To summarize, here are a few takeaways. You can help document the history of Drexel by contributing materials to the university archives collections. The archives collects many different kinds of records from the Drexel University community and its impact. And we're interested in filling in gaps in the historical record in terms of both sectors of the university that aren't well represented in the archives, and also the experiences of historically marginalized groups. When preparing materials for the archives, it's important to keep related materials together and provide labels and contextual information. And always contact the archives, please, before you send materials to us. All right, that concludes my talk. Here is our contact information, which I'll leave on the screen, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. Can you give an example of a collection that was donated?
An example of a collection that was donated. We have received so many different kinds. It's hard to pick just one, but one example that I keep returning to is the records of the Schramm Company, which is a manufacturing company in Westchester, PA, which has had a long connection with Drexel because a lot of their engineers came out of the Drexel Engineering School. So that's a collection that we have been able to make a lot of use of through the research co-ops program of the history department. A lot of students have come and done projects using different aspects of that collection.
And if I can interject, I feel like we also, somewhat frequently, get kind of small donations from alums or if they've passed away from their children or grandchildren that document some aspect of their time at Drexel. And those are small collections, but they're still of value. I mean, the ones that we've gotten recently have been small collections, but we still appreciate the offers of those. So.
We've received a number of donations of course projects or course notebooks from students who passed away that were donated by members of their family. Those are often very interesting because they provide a window into the kinds of work that students were doing 50 or 100 years ago. That's often very different than what they would be doing today.
So hopefully that answered that question. Any others?
Oh, all right. Maybe we should just close there, and then of course, we can. We're happy to answer people's questions off the offline too. So.
Yeah.